In this unit, we'll discuss the learning of a second language with regards to World English's paradigm. Let's first take a look at what SLA or second language acquisition is. Second language acquisition is defined as the study of individuals and groups who are learning a language after having learned their first language as young children, and to the process of learning a second language. So second language acquisition is the study of individuals or groups of people learning a second language subsequent to their first language, and also the study of this entire process of learning a second language. Although second language acquisition or SLA refers to the learning of an additional language after a first language has already been mastered, we still need to make distinctions in SLA or in the second language in the light of the functions that a second language or additional language performs for different individuals in different contexts. So in some contexts, the additional language that people learn serves the purpose of a second language. In some other contexts, it serves the purpose of a foreign language. In yet other contexts, it serves the role of an auxiliary language. For example, a language which is needed by the people who speak different languages, and the common language that is needed for communication among people who speak otherwise different languages. And then an additional language, not a first language, not a second language, it may be a third, fourth, fifth language, an additional language in the repertoire of the individuals who already know one, two, or three, or even more languages. With the spread of English all around the world, we see a number of varieties of English emerging again all around the world. And in the World English's paradigm, a lot of importance is given to the recognition of these varieties of English which have emerged in the new context of use of English. And this emergence of the new varieties and their recognition has problematized the field of SLA because the conventional view of SLA is based on the idea that native speaker norms should be the ultimate goal for learning any second language. Whereas with the emergence of a number of varieties of English which have their local or regional norms, this conventional view of SLA has been put under a lot of debate, and many questions have been raised about this conventional view of SLA as a result of the World English's paradigm. According to Kajru, World English's makes three basic claims. The first claim it makes is that there's a repertoire of models for English, and not just the native English, which means that we have a number of models that we can aspire to attain when we are learning English, and not only the native models. The target can be any number of models, not only the native English model. Then the second claim that World English's makes is that these localized innovations, when English is used in its new socio-cultural context by new speech communities, the innovations in the language are bound to happen. These new users of English are likely to make innovations under the influence of their local languages and cultures. So all these innovations should be recognized and not rejected as deficient forms or errors. The third claim that World English's makes is that the ownership of English does not only lie with the native speakers of English, but all those people around the world who use English own the English. They own their own English. These basic claims of World English's pose a great challenge to traditional SLA paradigm. First of all, if we take these world Englishes claims seriously, which linguists and scholars do, it completely rejects the basic SLA view of second language learning, which is the attainment of native-like competence. Whereas the world Englishes paradigms recognizes local norms and local varieties of English. And the second challenge that this view of world Englishes poses for SLA paradigm is that only native speakers are not responsible for standardization of English. If English is owned by different people, those who speak different varieties of English own their own English, they can be held responsible for standardizing their Englishes. This global spread of English has led to the use of English in new speech communities, and these new speech communities have very different socio-cultural norms from the regional socio-cultural norms for which English was used, that is, native English-speaking countries' socio-cultural context or socio-cultural norms. So, as a result of the use of English in new speech communities, for several practical and socio-cultural reasons, English is used differently to meet these needs or these new needs of the new speech communities, these new pragmatic and socio-cultural needs of new speech communities. So, with the spread of English, English is used in new speech communities, and to answer the needs of these speech communities, English is used differently from native English standards. And as a result, multiple norms of the use of English have emerged at the local, national, and regional level. So we do not only have native English norms, but several norms which have emerged at local, regional, and national level. The difference that we see between SLA and world English is how the two paradigms view linguistic competence is exemplified in how they treat errors. In SLA, errors are treated as deficiency, as the learner's inability to use language appropriately or correctly, whereas in world Englishes, errors are viewed only as variations that different learners make based on their own socio-cultural and linguistic contexts. So what we need to do is in the field of SLA, we need to bring about certain changes in how we view this field of second language acquisition, and non-native speaker norms should be treated as equal to native speaker norms, because English is learned as a second language not by native speakers but by non-native speakers, and because of this fact, the norms that are developed for the use of English in outer and expanding circle countries should be given the same amount of importance, the same degree of importance as is given to native English norms. And not only that, we should also use non-native speaker norms for evaluating the appropriateness of the use of English in these outer and expanding circle countries. So the proficiency or the degree of attainment of a learner in outer and expanding circle countries should be evaluated against the local English norms or the local norms of English language use, and not the native norms of English language use.